The writers will be attending via Zoom, so, I'm going to go ahead and welcome to the panelists.
Make him, yes, or no, yes, that's the word. And here is the. Start the meeting. Would you like to read the pledge? After we start the meeting, would you like to read the pledge? Please. You know what? Just because I have a mic, I got to talk to you. All right, I think we're ready.
Yeah, you can go ahead and start.
Well, welcome to our public hearing and regular meeting for November. We are going to start today's agenda by having Mr. Kent Peterson lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Please stand. You have me or with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kent. And Crystal, I believe next we have a very in, and I do not say that we started at 5:35 on November 13th. Do I get up?
Yes, you do. You're gonna go ahead and raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Lee Ballard. Have been appointed to the office of planning and zoning.
Have been appointed to the office of planning and zoning.
I do solemnly swear or affirm
Solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and obey and defend
that I will support and obey and defend
the Constitution of the state
the Constitution of the state
and the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of the United States,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations.
One.
I will give you your copies. I got it.
Okay.
And while Crystal is notarizing that, having looked at our agenda items for today, I want to go with the process. I'll start with you. This time, do you have any comments of interest on any of the items we are hearing or holding on to?
No.
So Karen, no. Darlene, no.
No.
Emily, no. All right, thank you. And has anyone have any remaining questions about the minutes from October 9th and October 16th, and or do you need more time to review those? Lee?
I wasn't here.
Me and Cameron cannot.
They can't vote,
No.
so we can't approve them because you don't have a quorum, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll
To be
move those.
Kent and or Kent, Larry, and you.
Yeah, so we'll just move that to next month. I'll make a note of that. And the next item is open forum, where the members of the public who are in our audience are welcome to speak up to 2 minutes about any topic not on the agenda. Is there anybody who would wish to do that? Thank you. And commissioner comments, this time I'm going to start with Lee Ballard. Do you have any comments you would like to make?
I have some questions and comments on the things we're going to address on the agenda, but I will wait till they come.
Okay. Thank you, Kent.
No comment.
I just really want, I want to welcome both of our new commissioners and look forward to working with both of you. Karen?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Thank you. And Riker, are you ready?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
Little faint.
Let me move the mic right.
That's it. Yeah. He's joining us virtually.
Riker, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me better?
Yes, thank you, Larry.
So I have updates on two different ordinances that we're currently working on. The first of those is the neighborhood commercial ordinance. I've received some comments back from the planning commission. But I've requested, and I've spoken with Darlene about this, requested that be put on your next work meeting agenda so that we can discuss that in more depth, so that we make sure that that ordinance is what the town wants.
And will we have your most updated version by then, right?
Yeah, so I will send out the current version of that ordinance so that we can all see the same one. In fact, I can send that over this week. That way we can all work off the same ordinance.
As soon as is reasonably possible with two new commissioners, that would give them the space to look at it carefully.
Okay, yeah, I can get that to you as soon as possible.
And you will be with us next Wednesday virtually as well, correct?
Yeah, so in November and December, it's more likely that I'll be attending virtually just because of the nature. We have several contracts with other municipalities who are also updating their subdivision ordinances. And as that deadline gets closer and closer, I may be in other cities and towns, so.
That's okay. We appreciate your voice. What is the second ordinance?
So the second one was a request from Commissioner McCray, from Larry, regarding the live work units. I received he had sent an email to Crystal that was forwarded to me to change the conditional use that is found in VULU 16.26 to make it a permitted use under that live work ordinance. Which can be done. I just need some clarification from the commission on this, because the ordinance that was presented by Commissioner McRae established a new use that was called the live work unit use that was permitted. This request is to take an existing conditional use, remove it from conditional uses, and then place it where this live work unit section was intended to be, and adapt the language from the conditional use, from the existing conditional use, to reflect that it is now a permitted use. That can very much be done. I just wanted to make sure that that's what the commission wants me to do before I start into that, because that's going to be a little bit more bulky of an ordinance than just the what the live work ordinance was itself.
And that section is 16.26. Did I get that correct?
Correct.
All right, so maybe commissioners, we can look at that prior to Wednesday's work meeting.
And also whatever he's turned in.
Yeah, also what you currently have on that would be most appreciated.
Okay, yeah. So all I have is what Larry presented to the planning commission. I think it was 2 months ago. And it was just
So just the one that dealt with parking?
so yeah, so we discussed the parking, but it specifically was to establish like a live-in unit in commercial zones.
Okay,
I believe it's in the SharePoint,
yes,
one of their work folders in the
Yes,
SharePoint, if you go back and look at your guys'
I'll
SharePoint.
find it and I'll put it in our work folder for, okay, next week. To do. Fine.
So this will entail also removing all the language for commercial habitation.
Yes.
I
So
think that's the point of concern or
Mhm.
point of needing clarification.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you'd like to tell us?
Those are the things I'm currently working on. I'm sure you're aware the subdivision ordinance is currently with Heath. So we're still waiting on that. Those are the only projects or the only ordinances that I'm working on currently. Unless the commission has other ordinances that they'd like me to look into.
Kent? The lighting ordinance, should we just say that to work, or did you want to get it ready to be sent to Riker? In which case,
I'll have that finished and, all of the suggestions, that, we had, we get implemented within the next day or two, so I'll have it out to you next week for sure. Or
Okay.
this weekend.
by the weekend?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Did you guys want me to forward that to Riker?
Yeah,
Riker, I'll be sending that over to you then.
Okay, perfect. And I should be able to send you that, the most current version of the neighborhood commercial ordinance tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
and it needs to be forwarded to,
Prosecuting attorney is after.
Yeah,
Yeah.
after Riker looks at it, then I send it over to the prosecuting.
okay.
All right, let me just make this note.
You might want to read the prosecution chapter, which is chapter 2. Want to give it to you, because there's a chapter in there for prosecution.
Okay, so that we'll be checking on it. Okay. So note chapter 2.
Mhm.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Riker.
No problem. I'm gonna excuse myself. I have, a meeting here in Kingston that I'll be attending, so, if
Thank
you
you
have
so
any
much for your
questions,
time.
yeah, if you guys have any questions for me, feel free to send them to Crystal and I'll respond as promptly as I can.
And new commissioners, that is our process. We send anything to Riker. We send to Crystal and she'll send it to him. So he's only communicating with one person, right? All right. Thank you so much. Have a good evening, Riker.
Thank you. You guys have a nice evening as well.
All right. So with that, I will entertain a meeting, motion to close the regular meeting and open the public hearing.
I move, we close the, public meeting and open the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And our first item is about our code compliance officer and is updating various sections in our code so that there's consistent language. And we've talked about this, geez, almost for a year. And so this is not a new thing, although it may be new to two of our members. Okay, is there anybody who has any additional public comment on the code compliance officer? All right, thank you. There is no public comment on that item. Item number 2, an ordinance deleting chapter 42 resort zone from Virgin's Uniform Land Use Ordinances. Is there anyone who has public comment on that item? All right. We'll keep moving forward. I do want to comment that this one is going to have to be continued to December with another public hearing. I got clarification. Is Heath Snow here yet? When he gets here, I'll ask him a question of him.
No, he's not on yet,
That's
but
okay.
we could talk about this in the, is it in the end of
We can.
After the hearing.
the
Yeah.
meeting, after the public
Yeah.
hearing part?
Absolutely. All right, so the third item for public hearing is an ordinance repealing the uses charts in chapter 30 and remove all references to such uses in these various chapters of code from 32, 34, 38, 40, and chapter 48. Is there anyone in the public who would like to make comment on this?
Was it this one that's moving to another public hearing or number 2?
Number 2, we're going to continue.
Okay.
Okay. And then, number 4, we will move on to removal of lodging and service stations from commercial zones other than highway resorts. You all have received a copy of a letter Mr. Massa, I believe. And, please read that carefully and it will become part of our discussion next week. Is there anyone in the audience who has additional public comment on this?
Keith, no, it's Joy.
Okay, thank you. The final item for public hearing is an ordinance replacing chapter 52, the sign regulations, amending definitions, correcting chapter and section references. And these are minor changes, but they still required another visit. There was one error in the whereases, the reference to a national scenic byway, and we are a state scenic byway here. And then there were recommendations by both our town attorney and by our town council. And those are underlined, all those changes are underlined in the document that is on the public website. But is there anyone in the public audience who would like to comment on that item? Thank you. So I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing on items 1, 3, 4, and 5, and to continue the public hearing on item 2, removing resort zone, to the December public hearing. Is that clear? Okay, do I have, Kent motions, do I have a second?
I'll second. A motion to close the public hearing and open the public meeting
Correct. Yeah.
with,
No, we need to, if we're pushing item number 2 to next hearing, we need to make a motion to move that,
We're moving one
to
motion.
extend that item number 2. I agree. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about?
Sure.
Are you continuing it to, like, the next time we have a public hearing, or it's for
December, to December's
to
public hearing.
December's public hearing? Okay.
So it's just that one item. Okay, and I suppose, Crystal, we could just also add on to that statement and open the public meeting, reopen the public meeting. So, Kent, you got that?
that we are continuing item 2 of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and the other 4 items, 1, 3, 4, and 5, will
Close.
thanks.
And, okay, and then we're going to reopen the public meeting as well.
And reopen the public meeting.
Do I have a second? Okay, Lee seconds, Kent motion, and
I,
Darlene, I can.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. So, maybe I will ask my question, or at least point it out to, Heath Snow. Heath Snow, are you there?
Keith?
He'll be there. Wait, we'll come back. Let's go to item 1, and then we will come back as soon as he is able. So we're gonna motion and vote. We have 7 potential items. We do need a commissioner pro tem. Mr. Peterson?
Is Larry here?
No.
If
So,
we nominate somebody who's not here?
no, but here's the thing, I know can't. Will Larry be here virtually next month?
I think he'll be here next month.
Because he told me he would be gone on the 11th as well. But if he's here virtually, we can put this off to then, so we have a full commission board.
I don't believe there's any rules stating that we cannot nominate someone that's not present.
I know, but this is something that,
Is that something that Keith, you can do next week?
no, it has to be a public meeting.
Oh, that's. Or Keith is there, Keith?
Okay.
Keith, can you hear us?
We can, but I know you have a preference for having a full commission.
Yeah, I've had that preference. And I'm not sure about Lee, but I'm pretty sure that there's been a lot of leadership opportunities and experience and stuff like that. I have appreciated a little bit of opportunity as pro town, but I'm no longer willing to serve there. So, I would, grant anybody else's comment about
So-
whether to move it forward or not.
No, but I know we are out of town, but
So let's wait. What do you think?
I was gonna move that we table this until the next regular meeting.
Okay. And I agree with that.
Okay? I do too.
We're voting or what?
No, I think we're waiting.
We're not voting on, we're voting
So we have
table it.
permission.
So we're voting on this.
So we made the motion, seconded the motion.
Who's second? Kent?
I'll second.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. All right, the next item is the Glacier zone change, and you all, the documents were in our SharePoint folder. And we discussed this at our work meeting. New commissioners, do you have any questions or points of clarification on this item?
Item 2. Right?
This is number 2. A possible vote on zone change, B-2151-B. The address is 1130 State Route 9, from rural residential to highway resort.
I just wonder if, the surrounding properties were specifically sent letters about this? Isn't that a requirement?
for what?
That surrounding properties to the,
They were all sent.
they all got letters,
Yeah.
okay. And
Like
I,
15 days in advance.
oh, great. And it does look like everything around it, except for that one piece, is already highway resort. But I'm just wondering what uses are available in highway resort zone that could be on a 0.88 acre piece.
There's an existing home on that,
Yeah,
so I would guess that they're going to do like vacation rental would be my assumption.
Oh. Right.
So that chapter is closed. Right. Short-term rentals are now closed,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
yeah. So, well, I can start with my rationale, it won't be a surprise, but until our general plan has been updated, I am not in favor of any zone change, especially one that abandons even more of our residential area. If we are indeed want to have a family community, I think it's something to think about, but until, and this one, out of all the ones I've seen, once our general plan is in effect, I might actually vote for this change, but not at this time. Anyone else have a comment before we vote?
I agree with Cameron, it's, maybe it was late, that the size is small, but and that would create other issues such as parking, et cetera. But, it's such that it's, such a small piece, also kind of doesn't really impede upon the rural residential percentage that we have that much. And I don't know what else that piece of property could be used for, surrounded by commercial. So I think it lends to the progress along the highway there on both sides of commercial and kind of focus that we've had in the past of that area being commercial. And I'm not sure what it was before it was rezoned highway resort zone. It's probably not that long ago that we had it zoned as such.
But you mean the surrounding?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the map that we had a few years ago that all of this area, both sides, was kind of the area on the east end of town.
Yes, and in fact, there was, I think, highway resort zone on the southern side of the highway, or all the way to, I think, to 101. But, not so much on the above, but north. But, like I said, it's, this other piece is even smaller than that one, so.
Yeah, what do we do with that? But it might lead for somebody purchasing this.
Right.
And then whoever purchases this makes an effort, you know, maybe even before they purchase, you know, works at trying to get that piece instead.
Yes,
It's just its own, it does not coordinate with rural residential.
right.
And, so at this point, I'm in favor of moving on and passing it.
Okay, so do I have a motion for a vote and a second for a vote on the rezone?
I'll move that we rezone the property in question, B 2151B.
May I get a clarification before?
Absolutely.
Are we making a recommendation or are we,
We are making a recommendation to.
or are we doing the rezone?
Yeah, for recommending.
We recommend it.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you spoke up, Karen, because do you have any thoughts you would like to add?
No,
Okay. My apologies.
no, you're fine.
Shall I fix my motion?
Sure.
I move that we recommend approval of the rezone of B 2151 B ordinance number 2024 I don't know.
It is 2151.
No, I'm looking at the ordinance number.
Oh,
There will not be ordinance number.
There's no
until it's
ordinance number.
approved
They
through
don't.
county.
Oh, right, okay, so
Yeah, it's terrible.
then to the ordinance amending Virgin Town's official zoning map by rezoning B 2151B, currently rural residential zone RR to highway resort zone.
I'll second.
thank you. And I think this time we'll start with Karen,
Yes.
and I am a no. Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
Right, so I'll put that recommendation in. All right, thank you. So let's move on now to item number 3.
Keith Snow is now on.
Oh, he's on.
Mike is working now, yes.
All right, hi, Keith.
Hi. Hi, how are you?
I'm great. So I have a question. We have, one of our items for public hearing, was removal of the resort zone, or, yes, removal of the resort zone.
Yeah.
And in the ordinance that was submitted to us, it was, let me just pull up the actual document. And that way I can not guess. There was one section that was not mentioned. Where's that? Here it is. Yes. There was language about 40-10, both before and after amendment, and 4012 prohibited uses both before and after. But as I was reading the whole ordinance 40,
Yeah,
I was wondering if 4040 needs to be included in this document as well.
4040, which, let me pull up that. Sorry, I'm getting there real quickly. 40. Okay. Are you saying 4240 or, sorry,
Excuse me. I've got two things. I have two questions for you. So that is one of my questions. I need to. Okay, item 2 was removal of service stations and lodging from commercial zones other than highway resort. And that was my question on that one. My question on the one of closing the resort zone is we continued the hearing till next month because it seems as if that property owner of the one spot that some people thought was already changed to highway resort, that ordinance was never passed.
Right.
And so therefore we need to notify that property owner. So we're continuing that public hearing until next time. Those are the two things I wanted to mention to you.
okay, thank you.
All right? Thank you, Heath. All right, so we are now on number 3. Ordinance of the town of Virgin, Utah, amending section 402 D and section 402.02 F. And to clarify that planning commission chair, pro tem rules of procedure are subject to approval by Virgin Town Council. It also removes alternates. We looked at the document carefully. And during our previous discussion at our last work meeting, this is for our new commissioners, there's pretty much universal agreement to not recommend this. There may be another alternative. We could not vote on this tonight, and we could look at alternative ways to address our code without having to do this. And with your permission, I would like to talk about that at our next work meeting and not vote on this tonight. But I need to hear from you guys. Cameron, do you have any thoughts on this?
So who was the originator of this ordinance?
It came to us from the town.
Well, if it came from the town, what I would like to see done is a recommendation made. I think this fails to address the concerns and the problems that it is trying to fix. And I think that, the best way to proceed, in my opinion, is to make a recommendation to the town to deny that this particular ordinance and give us leeway to put, to put in a procedure that the town council or maybe just the mayor can remove. And for what reasons, a commissioner can be removed or a member.
And that's, yeah, we have the same end goal, but we can do it either way. We don't have to vote on this. We can have another proposal and send it. And then deny and send with something to recommend rather than just say no, but to give them something. How about this instead?
I mean, I'll say, if that's what we're gonna do, I'll save my comments on this.
Okay,
I'd like to have everyone comments, because I have. I just wonder if there's some state code involved in the reason for this.
No,
mhm,
I checked state code. Just state code gives the town broad leeway in how it sets up its planning commission and how the chairs and how the planning commission runs, so. yeah, no.
Okay.
Do you have any comments? Do you have any other comments, Ken?
Yeah, in space, I don't like it because I think we should have control over who we want as our chair and co-chair and other things. I just think we need more explanation of
so
why we're doing this.
what do you think of the idea of not voting? Moving it to our work meeting, and then, coming up with a plan that is alternate. And then sending it on. That is not an ordinance, but would be more, us modifying our sections and rules.
Well, don't you think we need more explanation from the town council as to, and the mayor as to why they want?
Have you reached out?
Have I? No.
So that is one thing you could do. I can ask the town for some
I think
points.
some of this stemmed from frustration from the clerk and staff. So,
This comes from the clerk and staff, some of it.
yeah,
Not the actual document.
no, but I think why the document got brought up from town council came from a lot of the frustration from the clerk and staff. And that's why why the town council got done this in the first place. So there was, you know, in the beginning of the meetings and stuff, what was going on and how some meetings were being ran in the beginning of the year, how meetings were not being properly done and some frustrations were going on and not following rules and regulations. I brought this to town council, and so town council made the decision to write this ordinance to help take control as a little bit. I don't feel that way now. I feel a lot better, and I feel like things have dramatically improved. But as far as having this ordinance on the table, if something happened in the future where this would go that way, that's why we still have this ordinance.
I think we have an opportunity as a commission, and I do believe the town council would be open to our suggestions for, to acknowledge that maybe there, as Karen said, there does need to be some standards that should be measurable. I mean, just procedures for, and with the understanding, and we can write it so that it's not, if you mess up one time, you know, you can be removed either from the commission or from a position as an officer. But it's that repeated and consistent. And I think they would be open to that. And I think that would allow us to have that say.
Well, I think that it's important that we have procedure that is, in writing, to some extent and to cover things so that we kind of can know how, and I don't know, do we have any procedural?
We have a very old rules and procedures. And I put the original document in the SharePoint folder. I can move it up into next week's meeting from last month. And I had an alternative one. I had put in some examples from other cities. And I think from those and I've started a document of my own that I will share with you so I can get your input on that as well. And there's that, And then if we mention following rules and procedures in our code, in that 2.02 section, that might be another way to address this concern, where we set the standards.
Comment. First of all, I appreciate your clarification for me. That really helped me quite a bit as to where this is coming from, and I kind of had a hunch that's what it was to some extent. It was related. And so I would support moving it, to discuss procedures and the section that involves that, to help us to not repeat those kinds of things or to deal with them when they come.
Yeah, we can choose not to vote on this tonight.
I have a couple of comments, but I will save them, if you.
No, that's why I've been talking, because I wanted to hear your comments.
For one thing, as far as procedures go, I think it might be good to have an extra step, which would be council approval for procedures. But some of these other things, I mean, just the basic, outline and maybe even removal of. But, there's also something to be said for letting it go to a vote amongst elected officials, which none of us are. So, but I think that all of this is worth discussing further and researching a little bit.
Okay.
And so I move that we table this until the next, till the work meeting for discussion.
Yeah. Do I have a second?
Is that a motion?
Mm-hmm.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor? Start up
Do you want to do a roll call?
Do we need to do a roll call? I don't know. We need to do a roll call on that.
I,
Aye.
Ayes,
No,
so 3 ayes, ayes and 1 no.
oh, can I add one comment that I forgot to make?
Absolutely.
I think it's good to have alternates.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
by way of just a kind of a training or instructional matter here, when an ordinance comes to the planning commission from the council, that is what we consider a top-down ordinance, not a bottom-up ordinance. And if you read closely the Utah code, it indicates that the planning commission on a top-down ordinance needs to make a recommendation. If the ordinance was originating at the planning commission and going bottom up, you guys can table a proposed ordinance as much as you want, because you have to recommend positively to the council that they should adopt it. Your recommendation on a top-down ordinance can either be a recommendation for approval or a recommendation for denial, or I guess a third option would be recommendation for approval with some modifications.
correct. And
So I get and I can appreciate, and this isn't as important, but I would say that normally on a top-down ordinance that comes before you guys, the action should not be to table, but to recommend one way or the other. Meaning, even if you don't feel that you're prepared to make either an informed decision, or you want to think it through more, then probably the motion should be to recommend denial, and that be the basis for the denial.
And a point of clarification, Pete.
Mhm.
Does that vote have to occur the first time it comes up for a vote? Is there any code stating?
No, but, well, I shouldn't say that. If you read the code closely, it says a recommendation when it is a top-down ordinance, but you guys cannot be proposing an ordinance to the council unless you guys affirmatively recommend it. My point is, I don't know whether or not, tabling is appropriate. I've always advised that tabling should happen rarely. And that generally the recommendation should be, denial or approval. That's why I didn't say anything before you guys hopped in,
So
made your
Can we-
motion and voted, so.
denial or approval with the recommendation that the planning commission be allowed to create an alternative.
Say that again?
Can it be?
The answer to that question is yes.
Talking to you. Are we allowed then to make a recommendation with our recommendation to approve or deny? And then with the caveat for our recommendation or our input is that we would like an opportunity to come up with an alternative way to address this issue.
Sure. If you say, but you can't come up with alternative language right in the body of this ordinance.
No, okay.
But yes,
So-
you can do that. You can approve it and ask for an opportunity to work on it further.
Why not deny it and ask for an opportunity to work on it later?
That's that's more commonly what I see.
So we can not approve it, and our recommendation is that we be given an opportunity to come up with something else. Is that what you're saying, Ken?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
So we've already done what we've done, and unless you guys feel compelled to change that, which I don't think you need to, I only raise that as a point of instruction.
No, that's fine, because it will come, it will get the same end, so that's great, thank you.
He's not saying we need to repeat what we did. He's not saying we need to change what we did.
No, no, I'm not asking you guys to revisit and go back and come up with a different vote or anything like that. I just raised that after the fact as a point of instruction. I don't think that this is,
Forward.
yeah.
I don't know that we voted on anything though.
Well,
we
we
did.
We did.
Okay,
So,
all right, so, okay, so it is what it is, but, well,
when, can you just make contact with the town council?
I will do
Explain
that.
why.
yeah, and make sure they're, yeah,
Promise to recommend one way to for the next meeting.
yes. Okay. All right, thank you, Dee.
You bet.
All right. And that brings us to item 4, which is the ordinance that revises section 2010 for the DRC so that their agendas will be posted as part of pursuant to the Utah Open and Public Meeting Act. Is there any further discussion with our new commissioners on this? We discussed it at our work meeting.
I just have one comment,
Surely,
and I think this is good and I approve it, but
can you speak into your mic?
sorry.
No worries.
This is stupid, but I've just noticed it 3 or 4 times and it said the title has the word uniformed instead of uniform.
And so that's, so we'll make the
That's
recommendation that we're back.
fancy code.
Yes, yeah,
That's all.
okay. So, do you have any comments on this item, Karen? All right, thank you. So I'll entertain a motion.
I move we recommend approval of this ordinance providing that the Virgin Uniform Land Use
code be amended by revising section 2010, the meeting procedures of the Development Review Committee, DRC, to clarify that DRC is a public body, to require the posting of notices pursuant to Utah's Open Public Meetings Act.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Aye. Unanimous approval. Just make that note there. All right, thank you, everyone. And now we're down to number 5. And this is one, and the reason you're going to see it here is because we've had this up before and we discussed it before. This is also a timely one. We now have a code compliance officer, and we need to update our code so he can carry out his duties. And so this ordinance reforms 212, 220, 222, 1626, and 1628 of our uniform land use ordinances to allow for a code enforcement officer. Any further comment or any comment from our new commissioners? Yes.
The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th whereas says, whereas many violations of Virgin Town policies, procedures, blah, 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 are not being enforced. Well, we don't want to enforce violations. We want to enforce sections of the code. So I would suggest that we change the word violation to section. Does that make sense? You might have to read it yourself to see what I mean.
Okay, which, the fifth
1,
one?
2, 3, 4, yeah, the 5th one.
Many violations. Many. So it's the violations you would like to.
You may want to use the term compliance with Virgin's town policies, procedures, and land use ordinances
So
are not
whereas
enforced.
compliance.
Yeah.
Okay, with. So we
Compliance
would
with.
strike many violations of. Does that make sense to you?
Yes,
So compliance with Virgin Town's policy, procedures, and land use ordinances are not being enforced. And this is detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the town and its residents.
Is not being enforced. If we're referring to compliance.
And change R to is. All right. Anything else?
Another question, I see that the definition of zoning administrator in 212 on the second page is being corrected, but there's no definition for code compliance officer, and I thought that was a little strange. But we can always add that later, I just thought to point it out.
Okay, so that to me is a follow-up. Do we need to add?
Just that, I mean, I know time said yes, it's here, but, and it's not the end of the world that there's no definition in our code for this, since this pretty much explains what it
Yeah.
is.
But
But
I'm making
down
that
the
road
road,
to
we
see if
should-
it's a follow-up.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any other comments, suggestions before we take the vote on this item? All right, do
Madam
I?
Chair, Madam Chair.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I have a couple comments.
sorry.
No, you're fine. So
Where are we at?
so on number 5, I don't have the ordinance up with me, I read it earlier, but. So the problem we're trying to fix here is the zoning administrator's position has been changed and we're adding a code compliance officer. And he hasn't been able to effectively do the job because he wasn't named in this, so. It would be my recommendation that we add some language in there that allows the mayor or someone else to designate someone to act as the code compliance officer if we do not have one for some reason. So if you had wording in there that said the code compliance officer or designated official can enforce these rules, that's my only suggestion.
Is that something that could be fixed later along with that definition we were talking about, do you think? Just because,
Of course, I don't even think it fixed later.
Could you send me that language? And we'll just have a little
cleanup later.
all right, thank you. Those were both very good observations. I appreciate them. All right, with that, any other comments? And, do I have a motion for a vote on this?
I will move that we recommend approval of this ordinance amending and restating sections 212, 220, 222, 1626, and 1628 of Hulu, regulating enforcement of the provisions of this code to allow for a code compliance officer. With the correction, with the one's correction to the fifth whereas, which is not and serious change of meaning. Shall I read that in?
Yes, please.
Whereas compliance with Virgin Towns policies, procedures, and land use ordinances is not being enforced and is detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the town and child. And also with the note that we are later going to add a definition for code compliance officer to the code and to authorize someone to designate a code compliance officer.
Repeat. All right. Do I have a second?
Second,
And a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll ask you that question later. Okay.
What's that?
So there, I knew there, I had read it somewhere, but this,
Yeah, it's in the first one. It's in the,
Inspection.
2.12 or 2.20.
but if you're saying that in
It's
the
not
language.
repeated in 16 or any of the other areas.
Okay. And you're suggesting that we consider adding that to those other areas.
Yep.
All right, thank you. No, you don't have to say you don't, I got it. Yeah, I'm sure you have enough to do. All right, well, thank you, everyone. I love these new insights and the perspectives and the wisdom that lots of heads bring. Okay, so going back to our agenda.
I'll make the motion that we table for the next item, item number 6, which is the ordinance deleting resort zone from Voodoo land use ordinance until the current property owner can be contacted and another public hearing can be held.
I second.
Correct, and that's the public hearing we continue.
Yes.
Thank you for that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and then our last thing is the sign regulations. And the public hearing was the underlying portions. So does any commissioner have any comment about any of the underlying portions in the sign ordinance?
So, pardon my, my ignorance on this, but what I received for this meeting was I received two things for the sign ordinance. The first one was an ordinance deleting chapter, or sorry.
The first section was just the whereas and the.
So I got an ordinance that states that it's going to remove all of our current sign ordinance. Chapter 52 to be replaced with an amendment. And then I've got a draft of a sign ordinance that's also in ordinance form. So I see one motion here, so I'm not sure which
So,
one to
Did
discuss.
you both, because they're all one? The first document was the whereases. And there were 2 attachments, one, chapter 52, the other was the definitions, there were no, recommendations on the definitions.
Okay.
The town council, and this was sent with recommendations for the town council. As, I do have one thing I want us to, make a recommendation along with our recommendation to approve or deny. And that is the penal, penalties for violations, but we can talk about that right before our vote, okay? So, but in the body, so in the first shorter document, where it says, the only difference was the striking of the word, national scene plan. And in, the replacement chapter, the only things that for public hearing were the areas that were underlined, and there weren't a ton of them. Were you able to see those, Karen? Do you want to see my copy, Karen?
No, I'm okay.
You're okay? I'm a little, bit, okay?
The first underlined section, the second,
Well,
it's
it's,
242, number 242, number 3 flags.
yes,
The second one says up to 3 flags provided, all such flags or emblems do not advertise an on-premise product or service. So it's okay if they advertise an off-premise product or service? I don't know why it says on-premise. It should, just delete the on-premise part and be okay, I think.
here you go, yeah, okay. An on or off premise product?
Okay.
Do you want to see that?
Well, I was just wondering. Good point.
These were all the recommendations of the town council and for our town attorney.
Excuse me?
No, we don't need to. But we do need to.
I need to explain a little bit better. It seemed to me like it was that it was kind of, why are we worried about off-premise? What is off-premise? Is there a definition?
Yes, an off-premise sign is like if I have a business and you have a business. And I have a sign for my business off my property and on your property or any property not my business property, that's an off-premise sign. If I advertise for my business on my property, that's an on-premise sign. On the property where the business is.
Then don't you run into problems about, maybe they're gonna put a sign down on Woburn advertising this. And it's off premise,
But that has to go by,
can't control that.
no,
That goes to the Bergen's rules.
Yeah. But I just,
So
so
like,
this would just be in our city limits.
correct,
right,
that's the only thing we have.
The only thing we can
control.
control.
That's exactly right,
Okay,
okay? All right, okay, Lear Cameron, next one. Or Kent.
I have questions about this,
Which one?
well. Okay, so we can go to, 52.7.1 subdivision common entrance sign. So apparently that sign can be up to 20 square feet. Um. I don't know how you're calculating that area. I mean, if we look at, if you look at, say, Desert Garden sign. Are you counting the columns on the side? Are you counting only where the words are posted, like
The sign.
the whole thing?
The actual. sign.
So with this ordinance right here and that change, you're making Desert Garden sign illegal. Cause theirs is larger than 20 square feet.
Which subdivision?
And I would imagine that, I haven't went and looked at, Sierra Bella's lately, but I imagine theirs is larger than 20 square feet. I haven't looked at, over by the mayor's house, but I would imagine theirs is also larger than 20 square feet.
The
20 square feet.
actual sign and not the structure.
Well, that's what I asked, when
Yeah.
you said the sign.
Yeah.
So sorry if that wasn't clear.
But how do you calculate that? Like, does that, like, what does that include?
Structure is what the sign is on.
Okay,
When we talk about monument signs in here, that's clarified. I think the definitions section would be there, find out how to measure a sign and what is included in the measurement.
And what I recall is that does not include, sometimes it states if it includes everything, it will state and the supporting structure.
so virgin sign is bigger than 20 square feet. And I believe that,
That's not a subdivision sign.
no, it's not, but I'm saying is virgin, what I'm saying is, I don't think virgin sign is too big for a subdivision.
Yeah,
What I'm saying is 20 square feet is pretty dang small. So, I mean. Whatever, 20 square feet is pretty small. That's less than the size of a 2x4, or a 4x8 sheet of plywood.
4x8 sheet of plywood is. pretty big sign.
32, that's not very big.
Pretty big sign.
That's
That's a
not,
big sign.
it's no bigger than that.
Because when the Desert Garden states the actual sign height,
I think when you go measure that, it's gonna be over 20 square
Yeah.
feet.
I don't think we'll measure.
And I'm sure, because the one going into, Rio de Zion is bigger than that. I'm sure that it's bigger than 20
Well,
square
it
feet.
is. But you know, these are entering into a residential neighborhood, so it's not like an advertising sign that has
It's
to
4x5,
be super noticeable.
4x5. So this is 4.
And that's, quote, that's no, it's more like 5 or 6.
This table
Mhm.
is not 6 feet long. Your table is,
This one's 6 feet.
this is 4.
That's 6.
That's 6.
Yeah.
This is 4. So this is 4x2. And so it would be more than twice the size of this table. 2.5 this way, 1 this way.
My
No,
table
it's less than twice that table, because
4x4 is 16, 4x5 is 20. So 2 and 2 would be 4. This is,
oh, it's slightly, sorry.
yeah, so it's 16. So 2.5 of these would be 5. 5 by 4.
So
I think my
I see.
Desert Garden sign is.
I see some comments, some interesting, questions. One being that there's a neighborhood subdivision sign. It's not really advertising,
Correct.
right?
Identification.
It's for identification purposes. Which could be decided that advertising would be for, commercial enterprises. And then the question becomes, what are we trying to, designate as an acceptable size and features of commercial signs? Or does the document separate out?
Yes.
Okay,
This is just for subdivision common entrance, like the Desert Garden one.
And this was changed by the town council, what, do you know why?
I can tell you.
I'm sorry, that I don't have copies of this. If you can roll that one.
Which one do you want?
Sure.
What do you look at?
Well, this is the one we're looking at right here.
This one. And this was 7, 7.
Yeah, first paragraph.
I have another question or two on the mural. I should have started with this because it's the beginning, so I apologize.
No worries. They did not have any, they were good with the 20 square feet.
Oh,
Well,
did they,
we changed the language.
Which one?
They had, More questions about, is the sign as part of a traffic calming device such as a roundabout? They wanted that language out.
Okay. And that's,
All right, so Cameron, what's?
So if you go back to the top, it's 52.4.1.8. 4.1, item number 8.
Getting there, getting there. Okay, yes. They wanted permanent sign.
Walls, murals, and painted areas, as long as the design is free from advertising texts and logos as defined in this ordinance.
That was the request of the town council.
Right. I'm just expressing my concern with this is almost all murals that I see contain at least some logos in there.
And that they did not want that. They didn't want it to be advertising. They wanted it to be like the mural on the side of the Red Coyote.
Which advertised the Red Coyote, it had a picture of the coyote, which was the Red Coyote's logo. That's what I'm saying, like, this is not like an easy, like, cut and dry, like, hey, you can have a mural, but it can't advertise. Well, did that coyote advertise because that was their logo?
it did, so it would not be allowed.
If you're a bicycle shop and you have a mural on the side of your building that features a bicycle, are you advertising?
It would have to have words.
No.
Or if.
That's not what it says here.
How do you define logo?
Well, it's
Logo
defined,
is defined in the definitions. And I think it's more than just a drawing. You have to be like a copyrighted.
I don't know, but the Red Coyote had a logo that they put on their letterheads and stuff, and it was a coyote.
yes, so they would have had to leave the coyote off the mural.
And if you were a bike shop, you couldn't have a bicycle in your mural. I mean, that seems a little like, I think the wording there needs to be, I know what the purpose is, and I agree with the purpose. I think the wording needs to be adjusted. Now, if this is a top-down ordinance, then we're not gonna make any adjustments to this,
It's not.
but I would include that
But
in
It
the,
kind of is. Because didn't it get sent to them and then they sent it back? To us?
well, we
If
sent.
they've sent it back for further review and adjustment, then it's considered fair game to recommend changes to it.
He,
I can't hear.
how do you,
Sorry.
what is the legal definition of a logo?
Definition of a logo? Let
Mhm.
me. We do not have a definition in 212. Would it be elsewhere?
It would be in the draft
No.
sign.
I don't think there's a definition of logo in our ordinances. We'd
We
have
don't.
to go by, we'd have to go
We
by.
had a whole, we had, yeah,
Bunch of definitions that go
They did
along
not-
with
They
it.
did not send that back to us.
They did send them back. And that's where the definition of logo would be. Right?
Let me see. Here it is. I got it. Let me see if we have a logo. No. A logo, an identifying symbol used by 3 or more businesses or institutions outside of Virgin. So that would not be a logo.
Right, Red Coyote would not be.
It would not be a logo.
If you look it up in the dictionary, it says a symbol or other design adopted by an organization to identify its products, uniforms, vehicles, etc.
But in our definitions, which is passed with this, but it's not here because there are no changes to it. Logo is already defined as an identifying symbol used by 3 or more businesses or institutions outside of Virgin.
So it would prevent like chain businesses from using their.
But it would not have prevented, but it would not have prevented local bicycle shop.
Yeah, I would recommend that we adjust our definition to be a more common definition and then fix the wording in here.
To say what?
So you use the more common definition of logo, and then in this ordinance, it would say, walls, murals and paint and, walls, murals and painted walls. So long as the design is free from, use the definition you used, a logo that is representative of 3 or more businesses. That would make it much clearer to someone that's wanting to put in a logo, they don't have to go search up a definition of a commonly used word.
What if we just include that, that our definition there?
Right, just include that.
That-
after
Would
logo.
that trigger another public hearing, please? No, I'd love to
Adding-
do that.
Adding back in a new definition of logo.
No, adding the definition that currently exists in the updated definitions that goes with this ordinances, is the second appendix. For logo and just.
Adding the definition that got adopted
Yeah,
already
So,
into the body of this ordinance. It's just redundant, but.
Hold on.
make it easier to
Let me
do.
make sure I understand your question. Do we have the definition of logo somewhere in our ordinances?
Yes. There it,
Where?
accompanying the sign ordinance, the word is updated definitions for sign related definitions. And logo is one of those. The reason it's not in the current packet is when it went with a recommendation for approval, they were fine with it. There were no changes to that, so it didn't require another public hearing.
But
That definition is an identifying symbol used by 3 or more businesses or institutions outside of Virgin. And what Lee is suggesting as a way to honor Cameron's point is to include that parenthetically in the body of the ordinance.
so were those definitions, I know they weren't sent back to us, were they adopted?
That's a good question.
I think all, both appendices and the actual ordinance, which is that first document with the whereases, will all be approved together.
Oh, so it's not currently in our ordinance, but it's going to be with the final package, which is
This is
already.
all, these 3 things have to be approved.
So would that require another public hearing?
Is my question.
Uh,
Did he?
So you are putting a definition into this ordinance. The definition of the word logo.
Which it already has a definition in the ordinance, but we're adding it in a different location.
No. That wouldn't be a substantial change if it's already in the body of the proposed ordinance.
Great.
Insert logo definition. So long as the design is free and logos. It says as defined by this ordinance. Yes, right?
As defined as follows.
As defined. Comma, or even comma.
As defined as, and then just get out the definition.
As. Okay. All right. All right. Cameron, you have further questions? Me? I know you're looking. I'm cutting you off, Cameron, but you're looking. No, I'm good otherwise.
Okay.
Are you good with that?
Yep.
I don't want to leave you out.
So, what I'm hearing is that we're gonna make a recommendation on this whole ordinance.
Right.
But we're only working on the underlying portions.
Because the recommendation has already been made to approve it. And the town council wanted us to make these modifications. And so we're voting on whether to recommend approval of the modifications.
Okay.
Any further clarification has been very good. No? No? No?
No.
All right, so this is going to be, I need to have a motion.
We need to discuss what you want to recommend in the very bottom.
Oh, you are amazing. Yes. I guess so. I mean, those are really good discussions. Thank you, Karen and Luke for bringing up those points. Go to 5212. And
This was put in by our prosecuting attorney. We
we're
just need to know which one you want to recommend to.
correct. So I know where, which one I would prefer, but I put all three down. The first one is any person violating the provisions of this chapter shall be guilty of an infraction and be required to pay a fine of not more than $750 plus restitution if applicable. For purposes of this section, each day that a violation continues shall be considered a separate violation. Option 2 says any person violating the provisions of this chapter shall be guilty of a Class C misdemeanor and subject to a fine not to exceed $750 and or jail term and not exceed 90 days. That seems like it needs a few prepositions, not to exceed 90 days in jail. For purposes of this section, each day that a violation continues shall be considered a separate violation. And option 3, any person violating the provisions of this chapter shall be guilty of a Class B misdemeanor and shall be subject to a fine not to exceed $1,000 and or jail term not.
No, there's not supposed to be a two there, just not exceed.
Okay, that is correct. It's just the legalese. Okay, 6 months in jail. For purpose of this section, each day that a violation continues shall be considered a separate violation. I wanted you to see all three, and I can start this discussion. My preference is option 1. And so what we will be doing is sending all three options to the town council with our recommendation for an option.
I recommend option 1.
Hence,
Where did we get these options from?
from the prosecuting attorney.
I recommend option 1.
Karen?
I don't like any of them.
So no recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, each day can be separate, so we can find someone $750 a
Up
day.
to. Up to.
Yeah, so you can be fined $750 a day because you left your yard sale sign up for 3 days too long. So now your fee is up, it could be,
Well, I assume that would be after notice, right?
Yeah.
Those days following notice, right?
Is there
That
a
seems
time frame
excessive.
notice?
that seems pretty excessive to me, I don't know.
Based on the ordinance, they're based in ordinance, and it doesn't say it must be $750.
That's true.
And to your point, though. I
It's just
think-
no more than.
Yes, and I would imagine there would be. I don't know if that would be us, or that if that would be the prosecuting attorney who would come up with.
Or, can I ask a
He
question?
did say, didn't he leave a comment on if we decided to go with option?
Then we have to add that language for every day. Each day is considered, separate violation.
Can we say following a warning?
Well, that's where our code enforcement would come in and say, here's your 30-day warning, or here's your 2 weeks warning first, and then after that,
Correct.
that's where these fines would come
So
in.
that's my question. Does the ordinance say that the enforcement officer will give such and such a warning first?
That's what
Not
I'm
in this ordinance.
suggesting.
Well, that's, up to the code enforcement officer, and that's where our code enforcement officer would do stuff like that.
So, but that leaving too much up to the code enforcement
Yeah.
officer.
Well, that's where
There
your
need- I
police
believe
officer
there needs
decides
to-
if he wants to give you a ticket or a warning for speeding, that's up to your police
And I
officer.
would think that's more of an administrative
Correct.
decision.
But also, if a
Land
police
use.
officer, even though state law says that you were speeding and you get a ticket, you broke the law. And he decides to give you a warning even though you were going 20 over.
So when do signs, excuse me for my, simplicity here, when do signs get approved?
Well,
They
now
have
they
to
have
ask
to,
that.
and now the signs have to come. Planning and zoning, so you guys know that they come here, so you guys approve them.
I'm not concerned about the approved sign like for a business, that's not concerning me. That's not concerning to me, but this ordinance talks about a lot more than just signs for businesses. So it talks about signs for
And
your
that's-
selling your property, it talks about signs for your yard sale, it talks about signs for your lost dog. Like, all of those things, and so. I don't know, if I had to choose one of those options, it would definitely be option number one, but that,
And I definitely hear what you're saying, Cameron. I'm just wondering if that is. As we now have a code enforcement officer, are we going to have protocols? That whether it's a barking dog or a sign that's been left up, beyond the time recommended here. And it varies, Ken, for each type of sign, okay? Is that an administrative action, and should that protocol, like, the first step will be the code enforcement officer will do this, and then the next step is this?
that would not be in our
That's
purview.
not our purview,
You know,
but I do think it is a very, very, very good question.
But that's also where our prosecuting attorney comes in and talks with them and works something out as well too.
Correct.
So,
So I want to make sure that the code enforcement officer has time and an opportunity. I'm not afraid. I just want him to have the power to go to someone who's in violation, that he sees as in violation. And say, we got a problem, we need to solve it, here's the problem. What do you- what do you
normally
do?
they'd send you a letter and you would, I mean, it's not gonna be like,
You will.
day one, you're getting this, day
Yeah.
two, that's usually not how code enforcement officers work.
It's like,
And so far, he's sent out letters already, that's not how he's been working, I mean, he's been giving people 30 days to do things. So I would assume it's gonna probably follow in suit. Same thing, if code enforcement officer in Hurricane does the exact same thing, he gives a letter, gives you X amount of time to go into compliance. And if you don't, after this day, you've been warned, that's where your fees start coming.
So is there a description for the code enforcement officer that he has to do this, a letter, a 30-day letter? That's.
well, that's,
No.
that's,
Thinking of,
that's not our
That's
purview.
That's like administrative stuff,
That's
Yeah.
administrative.
that's administrative.
I mean, and it's a valid point.
But you gotta also understand, you're dealing with our code enforcement officer who is a police officer. You're also dealing with a code enforcement officer who works with our county's code enforcement officer as well, who works with our county sheriff, who is not blindsided and just some Joe Schmo that we hired off the street.
And the prosecuting attorney is who gave us this language, right?
And that is correct. So he's followed with state code. So we're not blindsided to this.
But no, the whole point
But
of
if you wanna enforce your ordinance, you've gotta do this.
Right, that's the thing. We've had language that sounded like it was enforceable, but it wasn't for years because we didn't get.
And how often have you heard that? You can't enforce this. And so that's what we're doing. And it might be a good question to ask, you know, because I'm sure.
Well, I hear what you're saying. I think we're giving the administration the opportunity to have a procedure of how they deal with issues, and as an example, in regards to signs and violations and so forth.
Right.
And so we're not telling him exactly how he has to run his position. That's administrative.
Right, like Springdale, they have a parking enforcement guy there. He goes around and gives tickets. Gives too many tickets, they turn around and say, whoa, calm down. And they give more tickets, or don't do this, or don't do that. But that's up to him to decide.
But he's guided too.
But he's also guided.
Commission.
Same thing here,
By
he's
the
also guided.
executives.
He is guided.
Yeah.
The sole purpose of adding that section is we have never been able to enforce things because we were missing this. And to have a proper language, we got it from a prosecuting attorney.
One thing too is, wasn't there exemptions? A bunch of the ones that we would worry about are exempt under this anyway, right? So yard signs and stuff like that, they're all exempt from these rules, prosecution.
Okay. I have a comment, so. First of all, like. There are other ways to enforce a rule that doesn't come down to monetary penalties. So I think couldn't the penalties be, couldn't the violation be a withhold, to withhold a business license or to withhold some other requirement from the person and not monetary? And then if someone's operating a business illegally without a business license, then they can go down that road, and then we're not finding people for putting up their lost dog sign.
That would be exempt, that would be.
It's not exempt, it says on there that a lost dog sign can be no more than 8 square feet. So if you put up a lost dog sign that's more than 8 square feet, you're
Okay,
no longer exempt. If your yard sale sign is bigger than 8 square feet, you're not exempt.
right.
If
You guys
you're,
also gotta understand, if you wanna put penalties on the bottom of your code, you have to follow suit on what a judge will actually prosecute. If you guys make up your own penalties, the judge is not gonna prosecute.
I didn't say that we make them up ourselves. I asked if there was other options
Well,
besides monetary fines.
Keith, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, we need to not vary from one of these three options, because the prosecution of this has to occur in the Washington County Justice Court, and the clerks and the judges are not set up to enforce variations. Either it's an infraction with no jail time up to a $750 fee, or it's a Class C misdemeanor up to a $750 fee and up to 90 days in jail, or Class B, which then moves it up to 1,000 and 6 months. We really can't do anything other than that, because when we go to bring this action in Washington County Justice Court, where our prosecutor prosecutes, that court system is not set up to do anything other than these. And the judges know it. They know what a Class C and a Class B means and an infraction. So I don't think that we should be trying at all to do something other than one of these options that are listed.
May I ask then if, it would be, if the, town council or the mayor has the ability to, you know, make strict guidelines for the code enforcement officer? Just through policies or their regular
That's a great-
rulemaking?
That's a great question. If the planning commission recommends and the council agrees, you can put actual implementation language that may seem administrative right into your ordinance. Like if you guys wanted to say after a 30-day notice. Because right now, we don't have that in our ordinance, and we don't have anything necessarily with regards to code enforcement that says that there has to be a 30-day notice first before we start citing them. So, yes, to
Shouldn't that
answer your
be-
question, Gene, you can.
Shouldn't that be consistent across all ordinances? though?
Yes, that's something that'd be better if it was in the code enforcement officer ordinance, not.
Yeah. Um,
I agree.
also within the ordinance, if there is, a town, in this case, probably a code enforcement officer, I'd have to read through it in a second, but there was a section that said a town official can remove a sign that is in violation. So that's an easy thing to do with my own stop sign that's been up for.
Right, so
Right.
I mean, if there was some language added to in January or February,
Yeah.
to the code enforcement officer ordinance or chapter, it could say that other means of solving the problem could, you know,
But I think it
before
is,
fines. But fines would be a last resort.
should be a risk to everybody.
Um,
I'll find it. I don't wanna find it in second.
yeah,
Like dilapidated signs and that, I remember seeing that,
yeah.
so. All right. So for this one, the only recommendation that I heard two. One was to insert the definition of logo. In that section number 8.
Mhm.
54(1) on its signs. And number 2 was to add the words, on or off premise product
Yes.
to 52.4.231. Did I miss anything?
Except for choosing the option 1.
Oh, and then, and a recommendation of option 1. Anything else? So if anyone who is going to motion this, you want to be able to look at 52.42.
Look to your right.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to go back to the mural thing.
No worries. We have 20 minutes.
Time in the world, don't we?
So I'm sorry to go back to the mural thing again, because I was thinking too much. If someone's doing a mural and it's not for advertising purposes, right, but in their mural, they're doing like an old classic 50s town, and they put the McDonald's arches in there. Now they're in violation of this ordinance.
They're not
And,
advertising McDonald's.
no, they're not, but it is a logo that they put in their thing. So I would think that you gotta have the language in there that's not advertising products that are sold at that facility. Cause I think you gotta be like. I think we have to be really careful with art, because art is an expression of free speech. And so I think we have to be really careful in the way that we regulate somebody's art.
And that is the rationale for the change recommended by the town council.
So I guess I would like to see further adjustment to that language on the wall murals and painted walls. Like, I get it, I understand we don't want the mural to be an advertisement of the products being sold, but I also think we gotta be very careful with how we regulate somebody's art.
True, but we also don't want people to sell their wall to McDonald's, so they can say 3.2 miles to the Golden Arches. You know, I mean, it's tricky. Yeah.
I think it is sort of something to continue to consider.
Yeah, I don't feel I don't feel comfortable making a recommendation as it is written right now, because I think we have to be more careful and more judicious in protecting people's art and people's freedom of expression.
Keith, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, with regards to this question raised by Cameron or otherwise?
Yes.
Yeah, content, anytime, I question whether, logos, fall into the category of regulation of content and thus violative of, a person's constitutional rights to free speech, and free speech as it extends to art. I would feel more comfortable if we indicated that it as a logo for a product or sold. I even get nervous with the product sold within the town as a business within the town. That type of language, I think I could get myself behind, but otherwise, prohibiting logos. I don't know that
Okay,
I'm an advocate, and I only say that because I think that if we were challenged on that very issue, we would struggle to be successful in defending ourselves.
So you're saying leave out logos altogether and just say free of advertising text?
Yes,
what if we just put free of advertising?
yes,
Because that would include both text and visual. Okay,
well, it says advertising text. And I'm
But I- but then I
saying
see-
logo, I'm saying strike logo, but unless you're gonna say logo of a business operating within the town.
Then essentially somebody from.
Because
out-
that's an off-premise sign.
Won't be a billboard.
Yeah,
well, just thinking about the McDonald thing, that is the violation. If I were to paint a copyrighted image on my mural, I would be the one, or a Disney character, save school teachers or using Disney characters.
yeah. A girls polo team was sued for putting a polo pony on their shirt. Why?
Ralph
Those
Lauren.
are copyrighted.
So, yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be putting somebody else's logo in your sign anywhere. But
There's plenty of murals out there that include the
Coca-Cola,
Coca-Cola, or they include the arches of McDonald's. There's plenty of murals that contain those iconic logos.
it's true. I'm okay with leaving out logos.
I would feel more comfortable.
Kent, do you have any comments?
I'm okay with leaving them out. I think that, I'm really sensitive to allowing artists to express themselves. When they're not advertising, we ought to allow that, with the Coca-Cola sign. Or, it's not a sign, but, an image, but does the document allow for
Well,
logos of a certain size, or
all the signs are in the.
what if an artist on a mural wants to put an actual golden arches through his whole mural on a wall? Where do we draw the line? How do we?
Well,
I think
there's an application process.
you draw the line with whether it's advertising or whether it's art.
Yeah.
Right,
And a lot of these would come before us.
but he doesn't want us to say free of advertising. He wants us to say free of advertising text. Is that correct?
That's right. I don't want you to strike that. If a mural has advertising text in it, then yes, we can regulate that.
I'm fine with that.
Are you good with that?
Yes.
Okay, so, thank you. All right. So so we're going to make a recommendation on the chapter 52 sign regulations, both the whereases with the change, that one change of striking National Scenic Byway, and the underlying changes in the document, with the recommendation that we under,
You're gonna hate me.
uh,
You're gonna hate me. I have another question for you.
I got 10 minutes.
I'm sorry. So,
I won't hate you.
yeah, he will.
No,
So I'm going back to the penalties for the violation. And in the penalties that that they have written here, the options, it says, any person violating the provision of this chapter shall be guilty of an infraction and shall be required. Does that mean there's no leeway to let anyone off? Like, if you violate this, you will be, or you must be?
that's
that
up to the
language?
judge if they get that far. Is that correct, Keith?
Say that again, I didn't hear the question.
Okay, so when you're looking at the penalties in here, with the language, it says, any person violating provision of this chapter shall be guilty of an infraction and shall be required to pay a fine of not more than $700. Does that mean everyone that's in violation of this must be prosecuted?
We
Does
need,
that language require?
we need
that
to keep the
everyone be
shall
prosecuted?
language, and I'll tell you why, Cameron. Because there's a clause in the Constitution, and both the federal Constitution and the Utah State Constitution, that says that we have to, it's the equal application of the law provision, meaning that we have to apply it equally. So we cannot, when we're talking about a violation, say may, because we can't, we shouldn't be saying we may and we're going to pick and choose. Well, we don't like where they live, they're in violation, but we like where this person's from, they're not in violation. So it really should be a shall.
Okay.
So that a facial challenge to that, to our ordinance, we can overcome it.
Okay.
And then we talk about non-conforming signs in here. Are we documenting all the non-conforming signs? Is the town documenting those? How are we adjudicating what those will be?
I think the code enforcement officer that's on his list of things to do, is to make an inventory.
Cause I'm reading this and, you know, almost every sign in all of town is in violation of this ordinance, so.
Not the ones that are grandfathered.
I know, but if they couldn't be built today,
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they're in violation.
but it means they don't conform to this ordinance.
Right.
None of our, almost none of our signs in town conform to this ordinance. Andy Anderson sign cannot be built today under this ordinance.
And that is protected.
But
It's protected, I understand it's protected. But are we documenting that all these ones are protected?
that's what I hope,
Cause
that's,
that's, I don't know,
I heard in, was it council meeting?
Once the law is passed, that will be code enforcement. Job.
seems ridiculous to me to write an ordinance that makes all of our signs in town non-conforming.
I don't know if that's quite a accurate statement.
Let's go measure them.
Well,
After he gets his documentation done, we'll see which signs in town aren't on his list.
Well, we also
all
have,
right. So
I
you're
have one other comment,
Yes.
Madam Chair. If we read the definition of sign in our general definitions, it includes the structure, the supporting structure
Okay, thank you.
I was afraid of that.
So if it includes supporting structure, then the 20 square feet for your subdivision sign,
Yeah.
Sierra Bella or
Well, Desert Garden. is
Desert
fine.
Gardens
Fine,
would be non-compliant.
well, it is compliant, Desert Garden,
He just said it includes the structure.
yeah. And I live with that son.
I know.
I see it.
I-
Let me, let me assign in the new definition, which goes with this ordinance, he reads. Any identification, description, illustration, symbol, insignia, medium, or other physical or visual device or representation which is visible from outside the premises on which such a device is located, designated to advertise, identify or convey information, or direct or attract attention to a product, place, activity, person, institution, business. Sign face, the entire area of the sign on which copy could be placed. Sign structure, any structure which supports, has supported, or is designed to support the sign. So they are separated in the ordinance.
They
It's
are-
separated by definition of sign face. It
Well-
doesn't say sign
No,
face.
it says sign structure. And the definition doesn't mention the structure, so they are separate.
But what I'm saying, they're separated right there, but when you go down and read this text, it just says sign.
Right.
The sign cannot be more than that, it doesn't say the sign
It
face.
should say the sign
It
face,
should say the sign face to make what you're saying true.
right?
Yes.
And where would we add that?
It would have to be on every single one of these square foot areas. Every time it says a square foot, it would have to say sign face can be no more than.
Well, I'm not sure that I agree with that.
Because monument signs, it's hard to tell, it's very easy on a pole sign.
You know, put up a monument.
Hold on, what did you say, Heath?
What I was saying was, it's very easy to distinguish the sign structure from the
Mhm.
sign face on a pole sign. On a monument sign, it is much harder.
Yeah.
And so this also goes to my concern, and I have always advocated that we do not bury definitions into chapters, that we put them in our general definitions section. For this very reason.
And that's where they are. That's where they will be, Heath.
Yeah, sorry, Heath, that you don't have those. They're sitting in an ordinance.
No, Heath, you do have those, because when you gave your suggestions at the same council meeting, that the council made their suggestions, that document was present, so you did receive it.
So, yeah, so I guess you'd have to go back to your last.
So those, I mean, there was adequate time for these concerns, there's been pre-public hearings on this ordinance. And I'm ready to entertain a motion for a vote. And currently, we have some modifications. One being 5241. Number 8. Wall mural and painted walls. Ending and getting rid of. But ending at the word text, free of advertising text and striking the rest of that sentence. The second is for flags. 5242. 3, number 2. And that one is to have it read not just on premise product, but on or off premise product. And the third one was a recommendation for option A from the prosecuting attorney. Did I miss any of the agreed to changes? And we did change the murals. We did add the.
Can I make a motion,
Yes,
for this, and just say I so move based upon your
comments?
changes and corrections, because I can't remember, maybe Lee can.
Yes, you can do that.
So I make a motion based upon the changes that you've made, for, a vote on this ordinance.
A vote for approval?
A vote for approval of this ordinance. Thank you.
Do I have a second?
For recommending approval. Yeah, I'll second.
All right. Do we need a voice count on this, Crystal, or just a vote?
Do a voice count.
Okay,
Yeah, I would suggest on an ordinance amending one of our land use ordinances that we take a roll call. on it.
that's where I was going. Okay, roll call vote. So we will start with me this time. I think last time we started with Kevin.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Darlene, yes.
No.
Thank you. That is the last item on our agenda, if my memory serves. Is there anything else we need to cover? If not, I will then entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting at exactly 7:30.
I so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. See you same time, same place next week.